360 BCE, the philosopher Plato formulated a theory to explain how all governments will inevitably develop into tyranny through their inherent flaws. The phases of this development became known as Plato's 5 regimes. This relates to the theme of triumph and tragedy in history because, although it seems like the government is improving at times through triumph, in reality it is getting worse. Plato's 5 regimes is played out throughout history in governments such as Nazi Germany, Athens, and North Korea, which went from flourishing to tyrannical governments. According to Plato, the ideal government is an aristocracy. In an aristocracy, the ruler is motivated by a desire to follow good morals and to help their people. An aristocratic leader acts in the best interests of their people. Plato described such a ruler as having a soul of gold. However, selfishness is human nature, and a ruler will become motivated by some selfish desire to prove one's valor. Here the government becomes imperfect, with a soul of brass. This is known as democracy. Democracies are the closest to ideal government possible, and were once found in the beginnings of Germany, North Korea, and Athens. A democratic constitution might read, "The emperor shall declare war on behalf of the nation. However, the consent of the federal council shall be required, except in case of an attack." While this seems to limit the power of the leader, the clause stating that in an attack, the leader may assume absolute control and act without consent of the council gives the leader absolute power, so long as they can give creative reasons for declaring war. In its democracy, the driving force behind the leader's actions is their desire for valor, rather than for peace. Over time, the desire to prove their valor gives way to greed, and the desire for wealth. Wealth is used to bargain for power, and in this way, power becomes divided. This is an oligarchy. Most governments have been an oligarchy at one point in their development. However, an oligarchy tends to be unstable, as the power sharing is reluctant and forced. There are many members of the ruling class, all vying for power. Yet none have sufficient wealth to completely control the government. As power is bought, social status becomes based on wealth, and there is an increasing divide between the rich and the poor. Plato remarked that in an oligarchy, a man may sell all that he has and dwell in the city of which he is no longer a part, only a poor, helpless creature. In this way, the power is further concentrated in the hands of the few rich, leaving the numerous poor helpless. Over time, the poor become more numerous, as power becomes more concentrated. This large group with little to no power then has nothing invested in the current system, and therefore uses their numbers to overthrow those in power, usually in a violent way. Fearing a return to oligarchy, the people will lift laws which restrict personal freedom and give the power to the people. They will hold elections and emphasize voting. An example of a democracy was ancient Athens, where men were able to vote on topics in their community. In this case, power was not gained through wealth or social status, but each person was given power equal to each other person. A key issue that arises here is that now, power is related to one's ability to persuade others rather than their wealth or class. Without education, the people will vote for those who appeal to their emotions or those who they empathize with. This means that if those who would make the best leaders are not popular or show less emotion than poor leaders, they will not be elected, and populist leaders will gain power. In this way, through appealing to people's emotions, tyrannical leaders will be elected, such as the election of Adolf Hitler in Germany. There will, of course, be those who oppose the popular leader, and they will be made enemies of the public through propaganda. In a democracy, having just become free from the oligarchical government, freedom will be valued above all else. However, this means there is less of a binding force holding the government together. There is an increased tension between different ideological groups. The nation becomes overrun with freedom, so to speak. There is no need for compromise, and therefore there is no compromise. Only the constant battle of ideas to win over the public opinion. In a democracy, while in theory everyone should be free to follow whatever political beliefs they wish, the reality is that rather than be persuaded by logic, they are drawn to beliefs which appeal to their emotions, and when told that their belief system is wrong, only defend it more harshly, accusing anyone who dare oppose their opinions of infringing on their rights and freedom. In this way, while the people are as free as possible, at the same time they are enslaved to their desires for freedom. They are not truly free. By choosing leaders who they believe will protect their freedom, and who appeal to their emotions of love and, more importantly, hatred, the the people naturally choose highly emotional leaders, and therefore leaders who are unfit to rule. An example of this was the election of Hitler, who appealed strongly to the people's emotions of hate towards those who were not like them, and by telling the people what they wanted to hear, that they were the greatest nation, the greatest race, and that they deserved to rule the world. Hitler told the people that those who were not like them were bringing them down as a country, and that he would eliminate these obstacles and bring the country to greatness. This is how a tyranny begins. At first, the leader is loved by the people, is the champion of the people, works for the good of the people. However, in reality, giving the people what they want is not always best, and can lead to their own destruction. Over time, the leader then uses their political sway to convince the people that they are being attacked, and must defend themselves from the invaders. This is exactly what happened with North Korea. Kim Il-sung began as the favorite of the people, freeing them from the oppression of Japanese rule. However, once the people are free, in order to maintain power, there must be continued war. And so the leader declares another threat against the nation, and claims that they need more power to best defend the nation. This once again plays out both in the Korean War and in Nazi Germany, as Hitler claims the Jews to be a threat to German superiority, and Kim Il-sung claims the South Korean invasion of North Korea. As the ruler marginalizes certain groups, such as socialists and Jews in the case of Hitler, or in the case of Kim Il-sung, the South Koreans and parties opposed to the Workers' Party of Korea, they slowly gain enemies from within their own nation. Eventually, fear of these enemies leads to a paranoia, and the ruler will request a bodyguard, or, in the case of Hitler, someone to test food for poison and essentially a bunker for home. In addition, the leader may attempt to deny power to their opposition by taking all the wealth and increasing the poverty of the people, though this only makes them less popular. To retain their popularity, the ruler, now almost a complete tyrant, continues producing propaganda, either to support themselves or to disparage their opposition. To further regain the support of the public, the ruler will create large monuments and other public works and propaganda, such as the gold statues of North Korean leaders. After having gained sufficient control over the government, the leader no longer requires the support of the people, at which point they re-emerge as a full tyrant. Now, with no fear of losing control of the government, they begin to act only in their own interests, to the ruin of the people. This is similar to what has happened to North Korea. The people live in utter poverty while the rulers enjoy a luxurious life, and the people have no means to take back control, as they are reliant upon the government in every aspect of life. The only hope for a nation once it has reached full tyranny is for an outside force to take control of the government, and essentially give it a new start. This has happened on numerous occasions in history, such as the end of World War II when democracy was restored in Germany. However, Plato suggested that while such solutions may work in the short term, the government will eventually return to tyranny and fall. In this way, when tyrannical governments are replaced by more modern governments, it is really just another phase in Plato's cycle of governments. The impact of this is that what may be triumph in the moment is ultimately futile, as all governments are bound to end in tragedy. But perhaps these small triumphs are what truly matter, and we should revel in the constancy of change.